Can you explain the lyrics of the song Pure? I was taken out to see a spoken word artist called Nicole Blackman. Some of the things that she did, all of the things that she did actually were very, very powerful and very impressive. But one of them in particular was about the thoughts going through the mind of a young girl or a child as she was about to be murdered. And it was really, really, really heavy, and but it was brilliantly done and really, really powerful. Pure is from the point of view of the person doing it, as opposed to the victim of it. So it is very dark and very heavy and very unpleasant. It is really powerful, but it doesn't glorify it in any way at all. It doesn't make it seem like a good thing to do. Quite the opposite. I think it's, when you find out what the lyrics are about, I think it's quite chilling and quite frightening. Two. Can you explain the lyrics of the song Walking with Shadows? People in comas, we assume, always want to come out of them. So we tend to stand around the bed playing music that they know, talking to them lovingly, all that kind of thing, in this belief that they want to come to where we are. And what I thought was that perhaps people that are in comas like being there. Perhaps they have an entire world open to them that we are completely unaware of, and they love it, and they have no intention of coming out. So Walking with Shadows looks at the idea that someone that's in a coma isn't actually quite alone. There's other things in there with them. It's a woman actually in the song, and in the song they are trying to get people in because she wants the people that she loved to come into her rather than her coming out to them. There's an underlying feeling that I try to create during the song, that the people or the things that are in there with her, wherever her world might be, want her loved one to come in for reasons of their own, which she is not entirely aware of. 3. Can you explain the lyrics of the song Rip? Rip was actually meant to be slightly tongue-in-cheek, actually. It's about the thoughts that Jesus has when he's on the cross, the moment he realises, well, actually the moment the first nail goes in, when it hurts. Now, your dad made the entire universe, so we're told, so you would expect that I would, if my dad was God, I would expect that when the nail went in, it kind of wouldn't hurt, it'd do something, and the pain would go away, and it'd all be for show, which would be cool. But it didn't, and it went, and it hurt, and that was the moment, according to the song, that Jesus realised that God had set him up. 4. Can you explain the lyrics of the song One Perfect Lie? One Perfect Lie was written after I had to have my dog Spooky put to sleep. So it was one of the many tragic things that happened during the making of the record, unfortunately. Spooky, 12 and a half years old when she died, always been with me, been through an awful lot of things together. And some people don't have any great feeling for animals, and they don't understand people like me that do, and get very upset by it. But that's their loss, in my opinion. It was very, very, very upsetting. Took me weeks, months to actually get over it before I could even start to sort of work properly and just get on with life normally. Very, very upsetting. 5. Can you explain the lyrics of the song My Jesus? My Jesus is about a man that hears voices, and instead of realising that's not quite right, I will go to the doctor and find out why I'm hearing voices, he starts to do what the voices tell him, and he thinks that the voice that is talking to him is Jesus, and what the voice is telling him to do is go out and hurt people, and it doesn't get very specific, but it infers that the man is sent out to do increasingly more horrible things as a way of finding his way to God. 6. Can you explain the lyrics of the song Listen to My Voice? Listen to My Voice lyrically is a slight throwback to stuff that I was doing on the Exile album a few years ago. So it's somebody is talking to a man, or something rather, is talking to a man whose job it's been put upon him to tell the world that God has gone. God was disappointed with the way man turned out and felt deeply ashamed of what he created and was destroyed by it, really. And this thing in the song is talking to this man and saying, you now have to tell everybody about this, rewrite the book, because the Bible is being completely misunderstood and misinterpreted. And that's his mission in life, hopeless as it may be. 7. Can you explain the lyrics of the song A Prayer for the Unborn? During the making of the album, I guess most people know now, my wife, Jim, and I were expecting a baby. And anyway, our baby died. And this song is one of two that I wrote after that had happened. So the first half, I'm having a go at God, even though I don't believe. Well, in some ways, actually, I'm having a go at the people that believe rather than God. So the first half is just saying, pretty much, where was God? He was somewhere else, too busy to do things like saving my baby. And then the second half of the song really is just me absolutely ranting away at God and why I don't believe and so on. It's to me, it was very, when I wrote it, it was very, very therapeutic. Although some people have said it doesn't seem to be in an entirely healthy way, but it was good for me. It got an awful lot of anger and frustration and pain out. 8. Can you explain the lyrics of the song Torn? Torn is about somebody who is prepared to die at the moment of orgasm to achieve the ultimate orgasm. And it all started because I know someone that is quite heavily into auto-asphyxiation, where you strangle yourself and pass out just at that moment. And I know someone else, slightly more distant to me actually, who is into being beaten senseless, and they get off on that. And it was thinking about that and the lengths that some people go to. And so it all came about because of that. I seem to know a number of people that like some strange stuff. And so the whole idea of the song was taking what these people that I know do and just taking it to an extreme. Because I wondered if there was somebody who was so into it and so deeply involved in the search for that ultimate thrill sexually, that they would actually be prepared to do that. 9. Can you explain the lyrics of the song Little InVitro? As I said in the previous question, during the making of the album, Gemma and I were expecting a baby, and our baby died. And anyway, so Little InVitro is my apology to our baby. 10. Can you explain the lyrics of the song I Can't Breathe? I Can't Breathe is another one of these I'm hearing voices type songs. The person in this song, who is also very, very disturbed, isn't trying to find God, isn't trying to find any kind of salvation like that. He's just terrified, and he's convinced that not only does he hear voices, but breathing, laughing, but that something's actually there with him. And as the song develops, it becomes quite clear towards the end that this person has gone insane because of the fear, and nobody knows he's there, and he's too terrified to move or to come out, and he's dying. 11. Why was Pure such a difficult album to make? A lot of people have been, for the last few years, some very high profile people have been saying very kind things about me and the influence that I've had on them. Because of that, I believe my credibility has risen to a very, very high level, which is nice. It's changed the attitude of press towards me considerably, and it created, most of all, an interest in a Pure album that I could see growing really from the last one. Before I even started making Pure, there was a level of interest which was much, much higher than I've known for many, many years. And so I knew that people, for the first time in a long time, the media and a lot more people than they usually sell to, were going to be listening and checking out the album. And so it felt to me as though this album had to be that much better than anything else I'd done to, first of all, satisfy that level of interest and to justify what people have been saying, but also as an opportunity to get in touch with new fans. If new people were coming into it, if the media were going to talk about it, it was a major opportunity for me to relaunch myself, and it was an opportunity that's not been there before, and it began to feel to me as though this was the big second chance that I dreamed of since 80, 81, when I felt the career started to slide away. So it began in my mind to take on epic proportions of importance. It became a pivotal album to me in my career and therefore in my life. And so for all of those reasons, it was very, very difficult. And then you add the fact that I had a very clear idea of what sort of album I should make long before I started to make it. And in my head, I could hear it perfectly. And then I couldn't get it down. When I went into the studio and started to work on it, I just could not get that sound onto tape. And so each day became torturous. I was terrified of having another block like I did with Machine of Soul, where as you all know, I turned out a fairly poor album. Every single day was physically frightening to go in. I was in a terrible state. I wasn't sleeping, wasn't eating. I got ill during the making of it. I couldn't function properly outside of it. It became a massive obsession that I had to finish, but that I hated every part of it. I didn't want to be in there doing it. I just wanted it to be done and out. But I knew it had to be the best thing I'd ever done, and it just all came in on me completely. And so while I think it's the best album I've ever made, and I do by far, it was also the most difficult by far. 12. How does it feel to have such good reviews for a Numan album? It feels unusual. It could not have come at a better time, and it kind of was payback for all of the pain that I went through making it. And I must confess, I am surprised. Perhaps it was just my time. The way that circumstances and life ebbs and flows at the moment, all the things were coming together to make this the album that people were interested in hearing, and I come up with the right album at the right time. But to answer the question, it's a lovely feeling to have very, very good reviews across the board. It's just been a very, very satisfying experience. I envy people that have good reviews all the time, people that are media favourites, because it's a lovely feeling, and it gives you a lot of confidence. And I wished I'd had it. Wish I'd had it a lot more. But maybe this is a start of a lot more good reviews. I hope so. 13. Did Pure end up being the album you wanted to make? It came very close to it. Normally when I start an album, I have a vague direction, and then I just see where the ideas take me. On this one, I was convinced that I had to make a particular album in a particular way with a particular sound, and I thought I knew what I was doing for the first time in a long time. It was a good feeling, but being able to get that was very, very difficult. It did end up being, as I say, very close to what I wanted. There are some moments in it which are a little bit more gentle than I'd intended, but in some respects that might be a good thing because it's given it the variety that I thought it wanted. I think I would have had a tendency, without some of the bad things that happened during the making of it, some of the sad things, I would have had a tendency to have made it all hard and all heavy, and it would then perhaps have fallen into the trap that I did with Exile, where it's all a little bit too samey. And so in some respects, the fact that it didn't turn out quite the way I'd intended it originally is a good thing, because my original idea perhaps was slightly flawed and slightly narrow in its vision. 14. Why is Pure so dark? Was it intentional? It was very intentional. I'd always wanted it to be dark. The previous two albums have been quite heavy, and it's a direction that I've been enjoying since I started writing. Well, I started writing Sacrifice at the end of '92. The Sacrifice and Exile have taken me in a direction that I'm very, very happy with, and so Pure was always going to be further along that direction. I like dark music. I don't like happy, smiley music, and so I always want to make music that's dark and aggressive and heavy. I'm just learning how to do it better at the moment, I think. And I think I can do it much, much better than I have so far. Look around and see a very time journey. Look around look down, go backward, see back in the down. I know you so underwater. I know it under the water. I know you so underwater. I know it 15. Do you enjoy touring? I do actually. When I first started touring, I found it quite difficult. Felt very awkward and clumsy on stage, and was very aware that I had a lot to learn. But then, as the years have gone by, I've relaxed and become more confident. Been doing it for such a long time now that it's like second nature. So I don't really get stage fright and things like that, as a rule. And it is by far the most exciting part of all the different things that you have to do to be a rock star, pop star, whatever you want to call it. A touring musician. And so I really look forward to it. I look forward to every tour, and while I'm sometimes glad at the end of each tour that it's finished because I'm worn out, within a few days I'm looking forward to the next one again, and I hope to do it for as long as possible. (16) Is it difficult deciding what songs to play on tour? I actually find it incredibly difficult. So it would seem, the more albums you make, the more choice you have, so the more quality you can choose from. Doesn't actually work like that. What tends to happen is, if you don't want to do a set that's all your big singles, obviously, it seems to me anyway that my audience particularly, or perhaps a tiny part of it, but a very vocal part of it, unfortunately, tend to think that I should do different songs every single night. Now, I think that's ridiculous, but I kind of find the pressure of that gets to me a little bit. And so I do spend an awful lot of time going over and over and over again what songs I've done, what songs I would like to do, or what songs I think I should do, more to the truth, what songs I can do, because an awful lot of my stuff has fretless bass on, for example, has lots of girl singers, saxophone, things that this current lineup of musicians in the band I have at the moment can't play. I don't have that lineup anymore, and that's one of the problems of having such a long career. And that as the music varies, I would have to have a band of about 20 people in it or more to be able to play songs from the different stages of the career. And so the band I've got at the moment and the music I'm doing at the moment is the band I want and the music that I want to make. But that means that I cannot do all of my back catalogue. I can only do bits of it that this particular lineup is capable of doing. And so I'm torn between choosing the songs from those albums that are left, and it's probably just under half of the albums I've ever made are now available to this band. And so yes, I do struggle, and I try very hard to change them around as much as possible. Always remember, of course, that I'm trying to do the best set that I've got. I don't want to change songs just for the sake of it. So it's a very difficult thing to get right, very difficult balance. And you can bet your life, whatever set you choose, there are people that will think it's the wrong one. So I'm always given a lot of feedback after every show that I do from people saying, oh, you didn't do this and you didn't do that. And it gets a bit depressing. And so I'm tending to cut myself away from it a little bit more now and get a little bit more hard-nosed about it and just doing what me and the band like and what I think the majority of the fans like. And those people that complain a lot, I'm tending to listen to them less and less, if at all, these days. 17. Do you feel that you have to rework older songs live, or should you play them as they were originally recorded? I prefer to rework the songs so that when we play them live, they sound as though they belong beside the songs on the new album. And so I spend a great deal of time in the studio as tours are coming up, reprogramming and working away and just trying to come up with parts. And the compromise is I keep the melody, the vocal melody the same. I keep the arrangement the same, or if not, very similar, so that people listening to a song in the audience recognise the song, recognise the melody, kind of know what's coming next, so they feel comfortable with it. But then I just add a whole load of stuff on top. So reproduce it with new programming, new sounds, new parts, everything on top of what was there before. The way I would do probably if I was to go into studio afresh and if I was writing that song today. And that, I think, has worked very, very well. The song is recognisable and yet it's modern. And that's an important thing to do. When you've had a long career, it can sound very, very clumsy if you have a song from 20 years ago with a song from now. It's just leaping around too much and the sounds are too different and it sounds like a very disjointed kind of affair. By working on the older songs and bringing them up to date, you keep the element of what they were, but you make it sound appropriate to the current stuff. And it makes it, for me, a much more enjoyable experience. 18. What do you think of on stage during a performance? Most of the time I'm worrying about my lyrics because I'm very poor at remembering lyrics, and I'm concentrating very, very hard on where we are in a song, what's coming next, what particular problems that might be, what I have to do technically, how various songs are taken by the crowd, how is the crowd reacting, what's going on, what side is responding more than another, how to work the crowd is a very important part of it. And quite often there's a number of little glitches that are happening to do with monitoring and various bits of equipment not working quite right. A show very, very rarely goes 100% smoothly, and the more professional you are, it should hopefully mean that the audience doesn't know any of that. They appear. Well, Brixton's a classic example that we did in October 2000. Well, I probably had the worst. The whole band had the worst gig we've ever had, and yet, from what I can tell, 99% of the people in the audience thought I was having a really good time and thoroughly enjoying myself. Or in fact, it was a nightmare, and I wasn't enjoying myself at all for most of it. So that is kind of the sort of thing that you're thinking about when you're doing it. 19. Would you ever use members from the first 79 touring lineup again? I really doubt it very, very much. Well, obviously, Paul has died. We all know that. Russell is into very different things now. I see Russell from time to time. Chris Payne, as far as I know, now lives in France, is married and does library music and isn't involved in that kind of touring thing at all. And Sed, I haven't heard from for many, many years. I don't even know what Sed's doing. And apart from all that, I really love the band that I've got now. They're my closest friends. We see each other all the time. They're fantastic players. They're very, very good people to be on tour with. Just the most exciting, fun time to be around on tour with them. And I think on stage they're just lovely to work with. They're very dedicated, very enthusiastic. And all in all, I wouldn't dream of trading any of them for anybody else. What inspires your songwriting? It comes from anywhere. Other music, obviously, the people that you like. I can be watching television and a theme tune or even a little noise in the background of something can come on and that would be cool. Adverts, go to the cinema and you listen to soundtracks and films and so on. So all those musical things are very, very obvious. But then it can be not just music, obviously, it can be words, a phrase that you hear, something like that, a particular person that you meet that has a mannerism, stories that you hear about other people. Just anywhere. I think the thing that's important is that you have your eyes and your ears and your mind open to anything, everywhere, and don't be too precious about it. 21. Are you aware in writing songs that they may become influential to others? No, is a simple answer. It's only been recently, over the last few years, that I've even found out that my songs were influential on anybody. And it's been a lovely experience to find that out, but perhaps all the more enjoyable for me because I didn't have any idea. So it's been fantastic. But no, when I sit down and write a song, all I think about is what's wrong with it and what I can do to make it better. I am not full of confidence. If anything, I'm riddled with self-doubt, and my concern always, I'm always convinced that I could do better than what I'm doing, that I could write a better part, I could sing it better. I only finish albums often because the time of release has come upon me and I don't have any more time. Pure was meant to be handed in on a Monday morning, a particular Monday morning, after the record company had been very, very understanding and patient. But finally the day came. That morning I was still mixing and tweaking. I still wasn't sure about it and just handed it in full of dread, wondering what they were going to say about it. So no, I don't sit there thinking this is going to be influential on everybody else. I sit there thinking, Christ, I hope it's good enough. 22. How do you write songs? What comes first? It's actually varied over the years, so I can't talk about all of the other years because I can't remember actually. With Pure, everything was written on piano. Well, a synthesizer, but it was a piano sound, to be picky. And melody came first, and then the arrangement, and then the technology was added later, so the actual power and atmosphere and drive of the song, the nature of the song, was added onto the melody. I thought it very important that the melody was the key thing, was the starting block of this particular batch of songs. And I wanted to see if that would make a difference. And I think it has. I think it's a different sounding album to Exile in many ways. And I think a lot of that is to do with the fact that it was written melody first rather than melody second. 23. Does modern technology make it easier to write songs or harder? It does both. It's easier because you can correct things, you can play something relatively quickly or badly and correct it and make it perfect. That's a misused tool, actually, the ability to do that by many people, but nonetheless it's a fantastic thing if used properly. Technology can give you an infinite number of choices. I must have in my library of samples something like, I couldn't begin to count really, but say 1,000, maybe 2,000 snare drums and 1,000, 2,000 bass drums. So if you really wanted to get boring about it and plough through them all, you could spend 2 or 3 days just trying to find the right snare drum for the track. Now, that might be a good thing, but I'm not sure that's entirely necessary. So technology gives you the option to really crawl up your own backside with pickiness, which perhaps isn't warranted by the end result. 24. How do you react to other artists doing cover versions of your songs? It's something that I wasn't very used to until recently. It's just incredible. And it really is flattering as a songwriter to have another musician, another artist cover your songs is actually more emotionally satisfying than actually having success with your own music, with your own songs. It's very close, mind you, but I would prefer somebody having a hit with a cover. Depends on who's done the cover as to how much you like it or not. Obviously, some of them I think have just been stunning and brilliant and far better than the original, my original. Others I think have missed the point completely, and people haven't understood what the song was about and why it was done the way it was done, and so their versions have just taken it into different areas but misguided different areas. And so sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but even the things that don't work, I'm still very flattered that somebody actually wanted to try. 25. Do you feel that songwriting is an important gift? I'm not sure that it's a gift at all. I don't have this thing about songwriting or music in general, actually, that gives it the importance that some other people seem to give it. I think songwriting is something that pretty much anybody could learn to do if they just bothered to take the time. I honestly don't think that it's a gift. Don't think that I'm a particularly good songwriter, and I'm not trying to be falsely modest. I genuinely don't think I'm a particularly good songwriter. I have an ability to do a number of things fairly well, but I can put them together arrange noises in such a way that it strikes a chord with a particular group of people that like to buy my stuff. And so my talent isn't so much for songwriting as just putting things together in an attractive sort of package for a small group of people. Um, Other people write songs that I'm very, very impressed by, and I think are very, very clever, but I still don't think songwriting, even the best songwriter, I don't think it's worthy of being called a gift at all. 26. What inspired the return to form of the Sacrifice album in '94? Well, Sacrifice was the first album after Machine and Soul, as I'm sure most of you are aware. Machine and Soul being a low point creatively, financially, emotionally, for all kinds of reasons. It was diabolical. And at the end of that, when that album was out, I realised that I was in trouble, and I took quite a long time out actually to rethink things. Why I was in the music business, did I want to stay in it? What else could I do if I wanted to get out? Why was I writing songs? Was it a good reason? Had my principles changed? Had my attitude changed? I just looked at every part of my life, not just music, but every part of it. That coincided with meeting Gemma. And during this period of deep thought, Gemma was increasingly helpful in making me see things that I'd been very, very shut off from. I always have been embarrassed by the fact that I'm not a particularly good guitar player, and I never thought I was a particularly good keyboard player, and I definitely have never thought I was a particularly good singer. So I was overly aware of these limitations and tried to hide them as the years went by through the 80s. And so my albums became progressively less and less Numan-y, culminating in Machine and Soul, which is hardly Numan at all. And what I'd learnt from Gemma, or I became convinced by, was that I may not be the best guitar player in the world. I'm definitely not. Or keyboard player or singer. But nonetheless, the way I sing, the way I play, has a certain sound, a certain style to it. And rather than hiding it, I should actually enjoy the fact that it's a bit different. So that was a very, very important thing to learn. So when I went back to Sacrifice, did the whole album on my own, just everything, found that I really enjoyed it, enjoyed the songwriting process. Abandoned any idea of writing songs to get on the radio or to get commercial success. Just try to make it as much as possible a hobby again, the way it had been when I first started. And it worked, and I thoroughly enjoyed making it, and it started me in a new direction. And it's probably the most important 6 months sabbatical I've ever had, because it changed everything about the way I live my life and the way I work my music. 27. Would you like to write more music for movies? I'm actually not overly bothered at the moment about writing songs for films, no. That's not to say I don't want to do it at all. I'm not turning it down by any means, but it's not something that I'm chasing the way I was before. And I'm finding now that it's something that I would probably be interested in if somebody came along and offered it. Far more concerned with the next conventional album and touring and working the conventional career as best I can. And I think that movies and that kind of thing will perhaps be something that I'll get more involved in the future. At the moment, it'll become a distraction really to the main event, which is the conventional career. 28. Are you interested in working with other artists? I am, yes. There's a number of people that I'll be happy to work with. Recently I've worked with Dubstar, The Six, which is Stephen Merritt, Fear Factory, obviously. So I am getting more and more involved in it. Trent Reznor has mentioned a couple of times that he'd like to do something, which I would love to do, but I'll leave that to Trent to come up with time when he's available, because he's a much bigger act than I am. And also Billy Corgan from Smashing Pumpkins has we've been in touch for a while now, talking about a project together, which may happen in 2001. It's hard to say. But yeah, so I'm very open to both of those, particularly because I'm fans of those. And Africa Bambaataa has been talking about doing something for a while, which again may or may not happen in the coming year. So I am open to it, but it's not something that I'm actively chasing because I'm busy with my own thing. 29. Why do you write about God so much? Well, it's only recently, over the last couple of albums, 2 or 3 albums I suppose, that I've really gone for it. Up until then, it was just the odd line here and there, the odd song here and there. To spread over 280, 290 songs, whatever it was, up until Sacrifice. I hardly mentioned him at all, really, considering I'm a fierce anti-religious person. You probably know, but I didn't even do religious instruction at school. I got myself excused from it because I didn't believe. So this isn't a newfound thing for me. This is something that's been deep in me all my life, even as a child. I do not believe, and I find it annoys me in a way that I don't understand. People say, why do you write about it if you don't believe in it? Why does it bother you so much? And I can't answer that, because it's a very good question, but I don't know why it does, but it does. I think everything I write about God, I'm kind of writing for people that believe in God rather than having a go at God himself. Anyway, so that's that. It's up until relatively recently. I don't think I have done it too much. More recently, I did the Exile album about it because I just decided it was going to be a theme. And the theme of the album wasn't having a go at God and saying it's all rubbish. The theme of the album was that we have misinterpreted the Bible. And this is fiction, just fiction, The idea was that the Bible had been badly misinterpreted, and that God was very, very much more evil, different, more frightening than we've been led to believe. And there in fact was no God and the devil. It was all one and the same thing. In some ways it was a soundtrack to a film that was never made. But I really enjoyed it. I'm afraid at the moment I'm finding it hard to resist having the odd go here and there, especially in recent times because of all the horrible things that have happened. And so I don't think I speak about God too much, but I do realise I've done it quite a lot recently. 30. Do you mind your music being used on adverts? So far, no. It's been used on a lager commercial, and even though I don't drink, I don't wave flags against drinking. Not that I approve of people being drunk, because I find them to be horrible in the main and unpleasant. However, what else has it been used on? American Express it's been used on. It's actually used for General Motors advert in America, but I didn't know about that one because I might have said no to that, because I'm told that General Motors used to use pigs for testing, crashing their cars into or things like that, which is completely disgusting. There are a number of things I would not want my music associated with when it comes to advertising. Any company that I was aware of that did animal testing or supported animal testing or financed animal testing, like National Westminster Bank and things like that. Barclays was cool because I don't think they do. National Westminster wouldn't have been because they do. 31. Are you proud of Cars? I am very proud of Cars, yes. It's now been a hit in 4 different decades, 2 different centuries, 2 different millennia. And that's quite an incredible thing. And it has, and I don't think I'm being big-headed, but I think it has become one of the world's most well-known classic songs. And that's an incredible thing to have done. And so, yes, I'm very proud of it. Very, very proud of it. Unfortunately, it's only now kind of that I feel comfortable talking about it in that way, because I felt in the past that it's kind of overshadowed everything else that I was doing. 32. Has the long success of Cars, now hitting 4 decades, been a good thing or bad? Well, it's been both, but I guess now I'd have to say that it's been more good than bad. So obviously financially it's been very, very good to me, and I've earned a lot of money from it, can't deny it, over the years, more than any other song I've written. It's helped to reintroduce me to the public on a number of occasions when it's been re-released again. And I have to say that none of the re-releases that have ever been done of Cars have been anything to do with me. I was only responsible for the first time it was released in 1979. The problem with a song that's that successful, it overshadows you, and it's like this lovely cloud. It's a cloud with a silver lining, but it's a cloud nonetheless that follows you wherever you go, and you're always a person that's remembered for Cars. Now, if you take away Cars, I've still got something like 30 singles that have been in the chart, which is including another number 1. Now that's an incredible career by any standard. Take away the other number 1, and I've still got a career full of chart singles, which is better than most other people would consider themselves to have a successful career. So take away my 2 big ones, and I've still got a very impressive track record. But put those two in, and it kind of negates the rest of it. People forget that I've had years and years and years of having hit singles because I had these two right at the beginning, Cars, Knife, Friends, Electric. Now that's frustrating. It's frustrating to have you to be looked upon as less successful than other people when you've actually had a lot more success than them. It's just that your career has had these two particular highs that have overshadowed the rest. And I found having to go on TV shows when you're made to do cars has been very frustrating. And I've actually recently stopped doing that. If you said no to TVs, which I'm still not sure is the right thing to do, but I'm just so sick of people thinking that I'm reliving past glories and living on past glories, which I'm desperately trying not to do. I now feel with Pure that I'm recognised as being just another musician this year rather than somebody from the 80s that's sort of desperately trying to hang on. I feel the new album has been so well received that it's now re-established me as an ongoing, current, viable artist in the year 2001, and therefore my history is something I can now be proud of rather than try to hide away from. 33. Reviewers now talk of your music as dark and industrial. Are you pleased? I am pleased, yes. It's something that I've been moving towards for quite some time, to be considered part of a genre, which I believe to be the most exciting genre in the world of music today, is very satisfying. And I do think I belong there, and I do think the music I'm doing, and have been doing for the last 3 albums, is worthy of it and deserves to be there. And it's nice now to be recognised as such. Do you think stars have a responsibility to their fans in terms of behaviour and moral standards? None whatsoever. I don't at all. I think people should be able to look after themselves and sort out their own morals and not be guided by other people necessarily. And I would hate to think that anything that I did would lead other people to doing things slavishly because they look up to what I say and do so much, because I'm the last person you should be looking up to and taking any kind of guidance from whatsoever. And I absolutely refuse to have any responsibility whatsoever because people buy my records to them then following me in anything else that they see fit to do. Absolutely not, no. My morals are my own, scarce as they are. .35. What do you feel about fans? I feel very grateful for the people that stayed with me for a long time through good albums and bad. Not sure why they've done it, but I'm glad they've done it nonetheless. Personally, if I was a fan of someone to put out a bad album, I'd probably stop being a fan. There's been letters have come in when I've been particularly down, and and it's made a difference. There's been key times when the support of fans has made a difference. Some of it has been misguided. Funnily enough, the protest that was done outside Radio 1 many years ago now actually did me a lot of harm, and kind of made sure I was never going to get on Radio 1 again. So, but it was very well intentioned, I'm sure, and so I have no bad feelings about it. When I came back from my year away, the reception I got then was just incredible, and made me feel brilliant. And again now, the way it's building now is amazing. After so many years, there are of course that tiny little group that would rather, I think, keep Gary Numan as a private little club, and don't particularly welcome new fans coming into it now and say things like, "Where were you when in '92?" So there's some stupidity and some silliness going on, but it is from a tiny little group in a corner. You can sit there being miserable, as far as I'm concerned. The vast majority of fans are just amazing, and I think it's often said in the press that I have an incredibly loyal group of fans, but I do believe that. 36. Do you think some fans take the idolising of rock stars too far? Undoubtedly, yes. I think it's not just my fans, I'm talking about fans in general now. I wonder if perhaps as soon as you write a fan letter, it's already gone that one step too far. I wonder if it should just be buy an album, listen to an album, go to a concert, go home from the concert, and leave it at that, and then get back on with your life, and treat me the way you would a TV program. You turn it on, you turn it off. So I think some people do take it too far. I think to analyse concerts and to analyse albums, to spend days, weeks even, wording letters to me which just go through it, to such a degree that is, you looked into it more than I did, and I wrote the thing. I think that's taken it too far. I really do. And there's been quite a bit of that recently, unfortunately. Perhaps we're in this transition period from sort of Gary's private club to a slightly more successful level, and it's upsetting a small group of people. People camping in my garden, I thought was a bit much. People nicking my fish, I thought was a bit much. People nicking all the flowers out of my garden and leaving me with 1 acre of green stubs, I thought that was a bit much too. People saying they're going to kill me. I think that's probably taking it a bit too far. You become an important thing in people's lives in some respects, some more than others. And some people want to let you know that. And sometimes if you let them people down because they've got this very high idea of what you're about, then they want to let you know that too. And so it can be good and bad. 37. Do you feel special compared to other people? I don't feel special as in better. I feel that I've worked very, very hard to get where I am. And I think I can remember quite clearly talking to people of my age when I was younger and being absolutely stunned at the lack of ambition, the lack of drive that they had, and their acceptance of an ordinary life. And so I think a great deal of people who have ordinary lives and now whinge about it and point fingers at people like me and say how lucky we are. Well, I was earning that luck year after year after year when I was doing nothing but writing songs and learning and struggling and trying to get to where I'm getting, when other people were going down the pub and getting drunk and just generally enjoying life at that stage. I was investing for what was going to be a better future for me. But I also think that I've taken opportunities that weren't unique to me, opportunities that come to many people during their life, and I took them, and other people haven't. And I'm still taking them, and other people aren't. And I am incredibly driven and focused on what I'm doing and where I'm going. And it makes me appear arrogant at times, which I'm not. And it makes me appear ruthless at times, which I perhaps am. And it doesn't always make me likeable, which I like to think I am. But it does mean that I'm here, talking to this microphone and being what I am. So no, I'm not special. I don't think songwriting itself is worthy of being called special. I don't think being famous, particularly, is worthy of being called special unless you've done something great to deserve it. And songwriting isn't great. But I'm different by nature of what I do. I'm different. And I think, so I'm told, I'm different because of the way I think and relate to the world. But not different in a way that's better than anybody else, just different. Why did you stay insular for so many years and not mix with people in the music business? Well, when I first became successful, I had a very, very difficult time with the press and a very difficult time with the public. And I reacted to that in a relatively juvenile way, I suppose, by just keeping out of the way, really. A lot of things are said about me by other pop stars, Mick Jagger, Bowie and Eno and lesser ones, and I wasn't too keen on what they had said either. So all in all, I just built up a very poor picture of what the music business was like, and I didn't want to have any part of it. And I kept myself to myself, built my own little bubble in the corner, and just stayed within that for the next 15, 16 years. "39. How does it feel to be constantly name-checked as influential by some of the biggest artists in the world?" Well, it feels very good, actually. It makes me very proud, very gratifying. It is an incredible experience to do. It's all the more so when the people that are saying that you've been influential on them, these are people that I actually admire myself, and so it's doubly rewarding to hear that people that I think are some of the most innovative musicians in the world today actually look to me as being an important part of their growth. I can't think of anything better for a musician than having that kind of recognition from other artists. Something that I'm still coming to terms with, still haven't got used to. In some ways, I'd like to be cool about it, the way some other people are I know that are considered, often quoted as being influential. They are very, they appear to think they deserve it, and I don't. I don't think that at all. 40. Why has your relationship with the press improved so much? I think it's a number of things. First of all, having all these artists saying good things about me has obviously made them question what they said about me in the past and whether the songs were quite as rubbish as they said they were. Bearing in mind that some of the songs that were talked about as being absolutely dire by the press in their day are exactly the same songs that are now being covered by some huge stars. So I guess that kind of has some bearing on it. I think also my own songwriting has improved dramatically since the Machine and Soul album in '92, and that's obviously got something to do with it. Also, I've been encouraged to socialise more, which is something I didn't do at all for most of the career. And that means I'm now meeting people face to face that had previously only read about me from press clippings, which wouldn't have given them a good impression at all. So I think it's a collection of all those things really put together. I saw one thing that said the reason that it's cool to like me again now is because I'm good again now. That's one way of covering your ass, I suppose, isn't it? 41. Do you feel that the credibility you now have is long overdue? I don't know. I don't think it matters whether it's overdue or not. The thing is, I now have credibility for songs that when they were released were rubbished. And so in that sense, I guess somebody could say, yes, it is overdue because you should have had it then, but it doesn't work that way. It takes time for people to recognise the influence of some songs that, first of all, just weren't appreciated at all. In some ways, it takes the next generation of musicians come along to actually make a fuss about their influences, which is what's happened to me. So it's not a case of whether it's overdue or not. I'm just glad it's here. I wouldn't say it's made me a confident songwriter, but it's certainly given me confidence to go out and mix with other people and feel like I belong and that I deserve to be there. 42. How did you recover from your financial problems of the early 90s? We began by cutting all unnecessary outgoings down to a minimum, which sounds obvious, but is actually harder to do than you think when you have a very large amount of things going on all the time. You need to get new equipment to keep up to date and to be competitive, computers, music, all that kind of thing. And so you become very, very careful about what you buy and when you buy it. You don't try to follow every new invention that comes along. You become very, very selective. You also, or what we did was try to do as much of the work as possible. So I ended up doing all of our artwork, for example. That's how that started. I was buying certain things, software particularly, that was difficult initially to get hold of, but ultimately we felt would save money because I would be doing more things. This includes pretty much everything actually, to do artwork, t-shirts, record sleeves and so on, and that made a big difference. And just everything across the board, we just cut back as much as we possibly could. But it's very difficult, obviously, because you still need to be competing with other people that are pouring a huge amount of money into what they're doing, so you have to become very creative and very inventive to find ways of getting around that lack of money problem. And then bit by bit, whereas you was earning £10 and spending 11 or 12 or 15 in some cases, there comes that day when you earn 10 and you actually spend 9 or £9.99, and there's a turning point. And as soon as you reach that turning point, then progressively from then on, providing you stay very, very tight and careful, you can begin to pull yourself out of it, which we've done. And to be honest, it's one of the things I'm most proud of all the things that we've been through, all the ups and downs and so on, is that we were in such a terrible state, and managed to pull ourselves back to now it is quite comfortable again. And I'm hugely proud of that. 43. Do you like dance music? I see myself as a relatively conventional songwriter, and I tend to listen to music most of the time as a source of inspiration and ideas. I like to check out what other people are doing and hope that some of it will strike a chord with me and send me off into directions I may not have thought of otherwise. And so I see it almost as music school, really, listening to other people. The problem I find with dance music as a songwriter is it's all very much of a certain kind of tempo, certain types of sounds, but I find that because of that, it is inherently limited and very, very tightly controlled and regulated in what you can do to be dance music, and no lyrics, or very few lyrics, for example, to my ears anyway. No great variation in atmosphere and vibe and so on. But I'm sure people that are into it would give me 1,000 reasons why that's true. But for me, I don't hear it, and so I feel that I can't learn anything from it that's relevant to what I want to do. And so for that reason alone, I don't have that much interest in it. And secondly, I don't find a lot of the sounds in it to be particularly to my liking, and the lack of lyrics is a massive thing for me. I like to hear people singing stuff, but in the main, no, it doesn't get to me at all. 44. Are you gay or bisexual? No. That's a simple answer, isn't it? 45. Are you driven by a desire for money? If not, what drives you? No, I'm not driven by a desire for money, but like most people, you want it. That the more money you have, the more things you can buy, to state the obvious. And it does have a bearing on your life. When you sign a deal with a record company, you're trying to get as much out of it as possible. But having said that, I don't truly believe that that's a thing that drives me. It was for a while, as the 80s progressed and into the early 90s. The money was a major driving force, not so much out of greed, but out of necessity, because I was going bankrupt. I was running out of money. I was finding it hard to even get enough money together to make albums, and it was just very, very grim. The life I have, this is a very simple way of looking at it, but it does explain it, I think. The life I have is such that I wake up on a Monday morning and I look out of my window and I see people streaming past going to work, and I don't have to do that. If I don't want to work that day, then I don't have to, unless it's a tour or something obvious, but in general I don't have to. If it's a sunny day, I can go and fly my aeroplane because I've earned enough money to have one. But the most important part of it is I can choose what I want to do each day, and that's a luxury that very, very, very few people have. And I honestly believe that is the most important and the most underappreciated, perhaps, thing that people like me have. It's that level of freedom to do with your life that you want, whatever you want to do. It's not a case of having so much money that I can go and buy a small country, because I don't. I doubt I ever will. It's the fact that I could, if I want to, go to a small country rather than work. Most of the time, actually, I just work though. 46. Do you have many friends? I do have a fair amount of friends now, yes. I've gone from having virtually none before I met Gemma to having a very large social circle now. And I'm amazed, really, how much I've missed in my life by not being that way before, by not being more sociable before. Gemma is an absolutely, she is the ultimate social animal. Not in a going out to parties all the time kind of way, but just in spending a huge amount of time in looking after her friends, staying in touch, caring, thinking about them. And I've been the opposite to that. Insular, not interested, don't want to use the phone. And she's, I can't honestly say she's made me any better in that sense, but she is now the other half that was missing from my social life. And she has created this social life around me, which I'm very, very grateful for and have a huge amount of pleasure from. But nonetheless, it's still Gemma that does the bulk of the work in keeping it going and keeping it active. I just get the benefits of it. She actually puts in all the work. But yes, I have a very large social circle now. 47. Is it true you have a social skills disorder? It is. Yes. I won't bother to name it because I'll probably get it wrong. But there is a disorder, which I have a very mild form of, I have to say, which involves interacting with people. There are certain skills that we learn as we're growing to do with communicating with other people. But certain things where conversations are easy. And you may notice that you find some people are just easier to get on with than others. They have good skills. They are able to talk more freely. None of those awkward silences that we're all well aware of. I'm just not like that at all. I find it quite difficult to make conversation unless I feel particularly confident in some way or another. And so I can actually talk quite easily to certain people and have no problems at all. But I'm easily put off and easily made to feel awkward and clumsy in social situations. Things like I misunderstand constantly. I I don't ever ask people what they do for a living because I feel like I'm intruding. But then, of course, people think that I'm not interested because I'm not asking them about themselves, and so they think I'm being standoffish or I don't care. And so then I react to that. And it's all just a big misunderstanding. And I could give you dozens of examples of that sort of thing where I don't really know what I'm doing. I do not have this instinctive ability to communicate with other people, which is probably why I tend to be reclusive. Gemma has all of the social skills you could possibly wish for, and she guides me through it and eases me into conversations, and is just generally brilliant at understanding my problems and bringing me out of myself and bringing me forward, and giving me a much better life socially than I could ever have dreamed of without her. 48. Is it true you have a telephone phobia? I do have a bit of a telephone phobia, yes, which is a bit awkward many years ago, because when I was about 16, 17, 18, that sort of time, I used to work for an air freight company, a number of them actually, on the telephones, and I was so weirded out about using the phone. I was rubbish, was completely rubbish at my job, wouldn't ring people up, so things went missing, and just useless at it. And even now, I'm not good on the phone. I'm forever running away from the phone and disappearing into another room because I don't like to talk on it. Whenever I am on it, I can't wait to get off it most of the time, because I feel like I'm walking a tightrope the whole time I'm on it. And like at any second, it's all going to go wrong, and I feel really uncomfortable on the phone. There are times when I'm doing telephone interviews when it's cool, when it's okay, because I kind of know what I'm doing. It's going to be a question, I'm going to answer it, and it's not conversation in the same way. I'm all right with that, but just ringing somebody up, I think it goes back to when I was a kid, and I remember being with someone, and when the phone rang, they answered it, and then he started making faces down the phone, and I thought, God, I'd hate to be the person on the other end of that. And I kind of never got over wondering if I ever am that person on the other end of the phone that people are making faces at. So it's a deep level of insecurity that I've never grown out of, no matter how old I've got. It's with me forever, I think. 49. Do you believe friendship is forever? I believe it can be, but I don't believe it's a right. I think if you become friends with somebody, you become friends for a reason. There is something about them that appeals to you, be it simple personality or a shared hobby or whatever it might be. You become friends with somebody for a reason. However, if that person you became friends with changes to any reasonable degree and is no longer the sort of person that you would actually choose to be a friend, I don't see any reason why you should stick with them. If somebody becomes really boring, a baby bore, or they drink too much and they start getting aggressive and miserable and violent all over the place, I don't want them as a friend anymore. A friendship is something that you earn, and it's something you keep on earning. You have to be a good friend to stay a friend of mine anyway. 50. Do you worry about getting older? I'm not worried about getting older. Really, no. How can I put it? I'm aware that time appears to be going past much more quickly at the moment than it did when I was younger. So I'm now just coming up to 43. I'm 43 in March, depending on when you hear this. March the 8th, 2001. So that means perhaps I've got another 40 years to go if I'm lucky. But it's not going to seem like the same amount of time as the 40 years I've just had, because life is now going past so quickly, or it appears to be. So the next 40 years is going to seem like the first 25. So if, in effect, I'm actually 3/4 of the way through my life the way it's going to appear to be, the way I'm going to perceive time. So I'm not worried about being older because I just don't want to be old. I think it can be a cool thing to be older. There's compensations to do with experience and, dare I say it, charm, general mellowness that comes with growing older, that my grandparents had stacks of. I think if I had a choice, I'd stay where I am now. I kind of like where I am now.